thanks. It's great to be back, isn't it? Everyone fired up? Now, to start with, I have to make one mention that even before I became governor, when I was running for governor, you always used to come up to this conference and I said, there's one issue that had to get solved. That was the topic of this conference for how many years? And how many people remember what that is? A regional transit authority. So I'm happy to report we've passed that bill. We're going to get her done. So we've got that one off the table, right? But it's great to be back. Sandy does a great job with the chamber, his whole team, wonderful people. I appreciate Joe chairing this year. It's hard work. And I'm happy to open the conference. And so I'm going to save a lot of probably the bigger picture things for later on. But I do want to talk about why this conference is so important. I want to go back to the pillars they've talked about already and take them one at a time and briefly walk through them with you, because they are critically important for Michigan's future. And having all of us have a discussion on what they mean will make a difference for 10 million Michiganders. So let me start with the first one, and I'm going to take them in a little bit different order. The 21st century global marketplace. Critically important. And a lot of people say, well, yeah, obviously we're in a global economy. But step back and look at what made Michigan a great state in our history. The 1800s, the industrial age, putting the world on wheels. For an economy to be successful, it has to engage outside its own borders. It has to engage in being an export-oriented place, a trade-oriented organization. Because if we simply only traded with ourselves within our state, we would be successful, but nothing about what we've achieved in the past, nor where we're headed in the future. So one of the things, one message we need to share with every Michigander is how important this concept is. And the phrase I like to use is made in Michigan. We need to be proud that we do something special. We do it better than the rest of the world. And when I say made in Michigan, the most obvious one is manufacturing things. And I think we should be embracing manufacturing, not pushing away from manufacturing as many other places are. We need to embrace manufacturing because it's all about making those goods and services that are critically needed for the future. But what I would say is it's more than manufacturing when you say made in Michigan. It's also things that are grown in Michigan. One of the strongest parts of our economy is our ag economy in the state. It kept us going during the last decade. They didn't get enough credit for the wonderful things going on. And if you think about the next 20 to 50 years in the world, if you can't grow more and sell more around the world, whoa, you got a serious problem. We're the second most agriculturally diverse state in the nation, and we should be proud of it, and we should be growing as much and shipping as much out of Michigan as we can. And then I'll come back and say, I've talked about manufacturing, and I've talked about growing things. It's also about what Sandy was talking about, the innovative concept of ideas. Those are things that we can capture here in Michigan and export across the country and the globe. And we forget about that too often. I'll go back to the automotive industry as an illustration. Obviously, we put the world on wheels. We made cars. But one thing we don't appreciate is we did 2 or 3 other things when we created the auto industry in this state. One, think about the dealership model. That was a new business model. That was really innovative. And it's something that's now treated as standard across the globe. Car insurance, that whole insurance model was created by this in terms of marketing products. So it had much more impact than simply a vehicle. So the 21st century global marketplace is a core of what Michigan needs to be, and it needs to be something in our DNA that we appreciate when we do something, when we make something in Michigan. It's not intended just for us, but we're making a world-class product that should go everywhere across the globe. And we need to spread that word. First pillar. Second pillar, education. We have to have a strong educational system. And one of the things I hope we have a dialogue, and it's great to have people like Jeb Bush with us that are leaders in education. We're following a model that's been laid out for us. But let's take it to the next level. And one of the topics on education I want to emphasize is a vision of P20, of prenatal through lifelong learning. We have to get beyond the old models of saying there are silos. Of saying there's silos for K-12, there's silos for community college, for higher ed, for preschool. They shouldn't be separate. They can be separate institutions. Again, it's not to threaten the institutions, but shouldn't we make it a seamless system where a student in that system doesn't have to figure out all these tough choices, but can just focus on success and making sure they're learning at least 1 year's worth of education each and every year, and hopefully even more, and letting them fly through the system. And understanding it starts even at the prenatal stage, and looking at, is the expectant mother getting the right diet, the right primary care? Taking it through preschool, and I'm really proud to say in this budget, we're really emphasizing early childhood. It's about time. Over the next 2 years, we're going to get rid of the waiting list for kids in the state of Michigan to say they can have preschool now. And why is that important? Thank you. That's a key driver and one of the most important single metrics for the success of someone's life. And again, I learned this from Governor Bush. It's third grade reading. If someone's successful at the third grade reading level, they have a fundamentally different outlook in life. And to do that right, you have to have early childhood as part of that equation. K-12, there's an opportunity for innovation there. Great innovation. We have wonderful teachers in the system, a lot of great administrators, but we need to give them the tools to look at how to be more effective and to focus in on student-centered learning, where the student's the center of learning, leveraging technology, the world that's coming up. I mean, think it today. Many of us have kids or no kids. When you talk to the kids nowadays, what's the easiest way to get them? I know, I've got 3 kids. It's to text them, even when they're sitting next to me. And while we may not like it, we need to recognize the world changes, and we need to appreciate those and embrace them, not fight it. Then you keep going, and you get to the situation of community colleges and higher ed tying into K-12. And this is something I really need your help, and I'm going to come back and talk about again on Friday. It's about career technical training. It's been very important, and we need to keep up the emphasis on young people getting a college degree and the importance of a college degree. But while we've been doing that, we've done ourselves a huge disservice to our society. And that's because we left career technical training behind too much. We've now created an impression that in many ways, if you go into a career tech track, you're a second-class citizen. That's wrong. We need to get back on a path of recognizing college and career ready as the metric. We need to get back recognizing that you can have a great honorable career, you can make an outstanding living, you can do very well by being on a career technical track. And we really need to put an emphasis on that because there are jobs waiting. And for many of you out there, I know, I can see the companies representing this audience. If I pushed you hard on what your greatest concern is, in many respects, it could be the lack of those technical trades could mess up your business more than anything else because you probably have a lot of retirements coming. And the question, where are you going to get those workers to fill those jobs? So we really need to emphasize that. And that ties into the model of how do we do more dual enrollment, dual credit, making it seamless to go from K-12 to community college to higher ed, to make it a simple system and focus on careers and lifelong learning. I know you're going to hear more, but that's why it's so important to have that today. And the last thing is on culture. That's the toughest single one. When I ran for governor, and people would say, well, what about the Michigan business tax? What about the deficit? What about all these? And people would say, what's the hardest problem you're going to have to address as governor? I told them it was changing a culture. It's harder to change a culture than to change a law or a regulation. And in Michigan, we had a broken culture. We had been so successful. We set the role model for success in the last century. But we were so successful, we rode that baby right in the ground. And as part of it, we became too negative. We started looking in the rearview mirror, looking for the good old days. And we became too divisive. The good part is we're starting to make that transition to the culture of the new Michigan, which was the same culture that made us great. With the auto age, the industrial age, all those other great industries in Michigan that were created. It was about being positive. It was about being forward-looking. It was about being inclusive. Recognize that we're in this together. And it was building on that philosophy that you hear from me all the time of relentless positive action. You hired me to do a job, so I blame no one for anything, because have you ever seen blame solve a problem? Credit doesn't matter. Solving the problem is what matters. And then to be relentless in the pursuit of common sense solutions and solve one problem after another problem and just keep going. And to do it as Michiganders. This isn't about me, this is about we doing this together. And I'll share with you one of the fears I really do have today. My greatest fear on the cultural side wasn't the first year in office. In many respects, people would say, well, that's the hardest. You're taking on these massive issues. Well, the fear I have is actually today and for the next 2 or 3 years. And why is that? Well, I've been to this movie before. I'm a Michigander. I love this state. I got out of school in 1982. If I went around this room, there are a whole bunch of you that got out of school within the same few years. Michigan was in a huge depression, 15% unemployment. The Houston Post was being sold in Detroit for the want ads. And we were at the bottom, and we talked about reinventing Michigan then. So what happened? 1984 came, 1985 came, our economy came back real strong. What did we do? We forgot about everything we talked about in 1982. We forgot about all those things we said we were going to reinvent. We went back to the same old bad habits that we did that got us in the mess to begin with. And we did that in the early 80s, we did it in the 70s, we did it in the 90s. To be blunt, folks, we were pretty dumb. And the point is, let's not do that again. And that's the issue in front of us today. As we're the comeback state, you're going to hear people say, well, now we can just go back to doing this, or let's go back and doing that, or we used to do it that way, let's go back to that. That sounds pretty good. That's not a good idea. And that's the part we really need to focus on. That drive, that desire to say, we've got the solution, let's get it done, let's follow through. Let's be that positive, forward-looking, inclusive place and stop looking in the rearview mirror. Let's be proud of what we've done. But let's not dwell on the past. Let's not be negative. Let's not be divisive. Let's solve the problem. And so that's the opportunity we have today. And so that's why that pillar is so critically important. So if you lay it together, what a great conference. The topics are the right ones. 21st century global marketplace, made in Michigan. Education. A P20 system that says our young people have an opportunity from the time before they were born through their entire life to learn, to have a great career, to enrich themselves for success. And then culture. To say we were a state at the bottom and that we're picking ourselves up as a team, as Michiganders, to say we're reinventing ourselves, to bring a new era of innovation to our state, to say we're on the path to saying for the next few generations, the people in Michigan today have the opportunity to define a bright future for successions of young people, to say you can stay in Michigan because there's a job. You can stay in Michigan because of quality of life. You can stay in Michigan because you love this place. So let's talk about those things here. But let's take them not just from here, but let's take them back home. I'm counting on all of you, all the learnings here. Let's have a great discussion, but then let's spread the word. Because it's about all of us being an ambassador to help us all succeed. So have a great conference, and thank you so much.